Hello, my name is Connor Book, and I'm a first year MSW student at the Kent School. My background is in finance and construction, and I am pursuing social work to work in addiction treatment centers and possibly private practice therapy as a clinical social worker. I apologize for any background noise as I have two roommates living above me and a cat who will yell if she is excluded from just about anything. So, just a little bit of background on me. Coming into this program, I didn't really know much about the field. I just did some research and found this was one possible route to being a therapist that was achievable for me. But after spending some time in classes, I've been challenged on my beliefs for pretty much the first time in my life. My eyes have been open to all sorts of issues within our society affecting vulnerable populations, and it's led me to have a mindset that I need to make a change in others' lives through working my courses. That's allowed me to expand my knowledge on the field, and I've gotten to learn about some people who did great things that I previously didn't know about. Today, I'm going to be talking about a man who worked kind of behind the scenes as sort of a broker between races during the civil rights movement, and that's Whitney Moore Young Jr. Whitney knew it was important to work with and not against the white people that are running the country. So when people like Martin Luther King Jr. and Malcolm X called for revolting and change on an individual level, Whitney worked with governments, institutions, and other civil rights leaders to fight employment discrimination, poverty in black neighborhoods, among other things. He and many others have helped to establish lasting change in ending segregation in the United States. So, a little background on Whitney. He was born on July 31st, 1921, in Lincoln Ridge, Kentucky, which actually isn't too far from Louisville. He grew up in a close family. Everyone was well educated. His father was the president of an all black boarding school out in Shelbyville called the Lincoln Institute, and that school ran from 1912 to 1966. But growing up in the segregated South, Young's family, they pretty much emphasized the importance of education and public service. So they were seeing this the entire time they were growing up. After high school, he attended Kent State University, where he studied social work and graduated as valedictorian. Before he could really get his foot in the field, it was around the time of World War II, and he enlisted in the Army and served from 1941 to 1946. It was his experience in the Army. He was in an all-black unit led by white officers, and he really got to see the discrimination in the military firsthand, and that kind of helped shape his approach when it came to fighting civil rights. His career in social work really began after the war. He went and earned a master's degree in social work from the University of Minnesota, and this was one of the key points that kind of started to make him an influential leader in the civil rights movement. It was here when he began to work with the National Urban League, and by 1954, he was actually the dean of the Atlanta School of Social Work. In 1961, he was appointed as the executive director of the National Urban League, and that's an organization that focuses on advocating for economic and social justice for African Americans. And he went and transformed this group from a relatively quiet advocacy group into a high profile organization that could really make an impact. Under his leadership, they emphasized job training, housing assistance, and education to address the economic disparities faced by Black Americans. So earlier we mentioned Whitney sort of as a broker of the civil rights movement. So the example we used was the leaders like Martin Luther King Jr. and Malcolm X. They were really out in the public, focusing on direct action, and Whitney worked primarily behind the scenes. He believed that the change that was going to last would come from negotiating and building positive relationships with all the influential white leaders in business, politics, government, our local economy, just basically everything on how society was ran at that time. So his strategy was clear. He wanted to create jobs, improve education, and promote economic development for Black communities by working within the existing system. He was a master at navigating political and corporate environments, which led to significant advancements in civil rights legislation and employment opportunities for African Americans. One of his most notable accomplishments was he was acting as the co-author in designing and implementing President Lyndon B. Johnson's War on Poverty programs. He worked closely with the administration and key business leaders, and his goal was to basically integrate African Americans into the middle class through economic empowerment. He was also instrumental in shaping the Civil Rights Act of 1964 and the Voting Rights Act of 1965. His contributions could honestly go underappreciated because he was really working behind the scenes and just wasn't in the public eye. But his impact was huge for the civil rights movement. He ultimately died an early death in 1971 at the age of 49, but he really forever changed the way that people view economic inequality faced by African Americans. Today, his legacy lives on through a foundation in his name and the ongoing work of the National Urban League, which continues to fight for equal opportunity for African Americans. His efforts also paved the way for more inclusive policies in corporate America, and through his work, major opportunities have been created for Black professionals within corporate America. So, in conclusion, Whitney's approach goes to show that you can make lasting change when you work within systems and focus on building bridges instead of burning them. He was a major player in the civil rights movement that I didn't really know much about beforehand, and I'm glad I've had the opportunity to learn more about him and his desire to work for change and equality. I would like to thank everyone for listening today, talking about the life and accomplishments of Whitney Moore Young Jr. and his impact on the civil rights movement. And until next time, thanks.